I would say what is different about Peterborough is that most of the houses you can rent and the rents are low, and that means we're full of families. There's 21 adults and 9 children, and children make community come alive. If you're planning a new community, I wonder whether it's worth getting touristic landlords to buy several of the houses to rent them out so you can have low income families, the young families, and that makes this place a lot more special. Otherwise, if you're just buying in, it's mainly elderly or professionals.
That was Trystan of the Peterborough Housing Cooperative. I interviewed Trystan and Stephanie about this different housing model where affordability is locked in, and that means that it cannot continue to rise in price, becoming unaffordable for future generations. That is one of the many values of a cooperative housing model. What he's referring to is that the cooperative owns the homes and then rents out the homes to the residents. And one way he was saying that could be affordable is if an altruistic or philanthropic investor wants to buy one of the homes within the cooperative, and then that gets rented out at an affordable rate, usually about 75% of what the market housing is. Cooperatives, no matter what form they come in, are guided by a set of principles. This includes voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, members' economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training, and information, cooperation among cooperatives, and concern for community. If you're interested to learn more about cooperative housing, I have a few other episodes that I've made. On the 28th of March, 2025, I interviewed Sophie Goossens, who did her PhD thesis on cooperative housing because we don't have the legislation yet for the financial institutions to lend to housing cooperatives. So she's written her PhD on what would help to unlock the legal and financial barriers. And that episode is called Housing Crisis Unlocked, the Legal Pathway to Affordable Cooperative Living. And I also did 2 other interviews with Cooperative Housing International and also about cooperative housing as a movement here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. You can find that on the Common Ground YouTube channel. In November, I held the Women Revolutionizing Housing Hui, which is a gathering of women for 3 days focusing on housing solutions that are affordable, regenerative, and cooperative. There were some amazing women who brought their projects to the Hui for us to learn about and for them to be able to get insights from the other members. I'll make another episode specifically on the Hui, but just to say, I think it was a great success. We have a WhatsApp group which helps the women to stay connected. If you're interested in joining the network, it is not too late. We're going to be having online gatherings once a month and also masterminds for the women who have housing projects that they'd like to get input into. So you can go to the Common Ground website, commonground.net.nz, and you can sign up for the newsletter and indicate your interest to be put into the Women Revolutionizing Housing Hui network. This podcast has been made available through the Housing Foundation, which is our sponsor for 4 episodes. The Housing Foundation is a not-for-profit that's advancing affordable housing in Aotearoa, and it shares a lot of the values that the Common Ground does, that I do. And so I'm really pleased to be able to have this sponsor to help me to get these episodes out, because it is not cheap to host a podcast. It takes my time, plus there's platform software. So one of the other ways that you can support this podcast is through the Patreon that I've set up for the Homefulness Show. And this allows you to give a small to medium donation monthly, which supports my ability to do a lot of the editing. And eventually I'd like to hire someone to help with that. But it allows me then to do the show production and find new guests and create interesting shows in the future. The big news I have is that I have been chosen to be an Earth Fellow. There's an Earth Fellowship program that was started this year funded by the Biome Trust through the Mangaroa Farms. I was chosen because of the work that I do in the sector of regenerative housing. That is something that I have been promoting for the last 6 years here in Aotearoa in many different forms, using the podcast and the YouTube channel, consulting to councils and to community groups on different ways of doing housing, hosting the Women Revolutionizing Housing Hui, and I would love to be able to offer more services in the future. So this Earth Fellowship aligns me with other Earth Fellows who are doing regenerative work in land and food and housing across Aotearoa. And with this, we also have the Mangaroa Farms, which wishes to have a regenerative housing community there. More on this to come, but just to say that I am feeling very honored to be accepted into this Earth Fellows Fellowship, where I'm able to grow my network and be able to dive into really interesting projects that are the intersection of land, food, and housing. If you are not a member of the Housing Innovation Society, I encourage you to join. As a member, we are increasing the member benefits, and for the Hui, you will get a discount. That will be in 2027. I'm serving as a committee member on the Housing Innovation Society, and we are working to make it a great organization to advance innovation in collective, affordable, and regenerative housing. So you becoming a member supports us to do this work. And I would love to have your input on this show as well as future shows. What kind of guests and topics interest you? I'd love to hear what are the things that you really enjoy. Do you have any questions you'd like us to be able to cover on the show? We'd love to hear from you. So please be in touch. You can email me directly at zola@commonground.net.nz. Now let's get on to the show. Kia ora and welcome to the Homefulness Show. I'm your host, Zola Rose, located in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We believe housing can be a means for regenerative placemaking to create affordable, sustainable homes and neighborhoods developed in collaboration with the communities that live there. We'll be exploring different housing models and neighborhood designs and innovation in energy, water, waste, construction, land use, and food systems to unlock this potential. This show aims to empower you with knowledge, resources, and networks to support you in creating great places to live. Come join us as we bring to life the more beautiful housing that we know is possible. Kia ora, Trystan and Stephanie. Welcome to the Homefulness Show. You are here today to talk about the Peterborough Housing Cooperative. I was very fortunate to be able to visit there in April of this year when there was the Koho Hui in Ototahi Christchurch. I really loved my visit. You gave us a great talk about the community, and then we got to tour around and step into a few houses and see what it's actually like to live there. Now we get a chance to talk more about that, the organization of the cooperative and what it's like to live in this neighborhood. Please give us a bit of an introduction about yourselves, what brought you to live at the Peterborough Housing Cooperative, and how long you've been there.
Kia ora, Zola. I'm Trystan. How long have we been there?
I think something like 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. Steph moved in 6 months before me. It took me 5 years to get in the south. It's a nightmare getting into ours, really. We've got a waiting list of 70 at least at the moment.
So could you tell us your role there? Do you have a role with the trust, or are you just residents?
Okay, I'm Stephanie and I am on the trust, but Trystan was on the trust as well. So the Aotearoa Land Trust oversee the Peterborough Housing Co-op. So I guess it's one of its projects. The trust operate from bottom up. So the community take ideas to the trust rather than the trust tell the community what to do.
Okay. Let's go a step back and just talk about how would you describe the Peterborough Housing Cooperative to somebody who doesn't know it?
So it's 14 units in 2 rows around a common courtyard, plus a common house with parking on the side. You're forced to come in through the main gate or off the car park and into the courtyard to go into your house. You can't directly go into your own house. And so, yeah, large common courtyard, which is like the shared backyard between all the houses.
When you say units, I think I remember them being 2-story, or are some of them 1-story homes?
So the one row is all single story. We call that the Salisbury row. They've got very high ceilings to give them the look of being bigger than what they are. And they have large celestial windows to get the north sun. Both the rows have different feels in summer and winter. They've been designed to get the most of the sun. The units are indoor-outdoor flow, so they're large glass doors on both sides, so you can open them both up and get the airflow going through. And the units are very well insulated with Terralana wool. When it's really hot, cool, and when it's really cold, they're warm. We don't have heat pumps, but we have underfloor heating, which is pretty luxurious for us.
As far as I remember, there are also townhouses where they share walls. Is that row all attached?
When we were designing the rebuild, we all had thought we wanted to rebuild with our little cottages, and we had plans of little cottages around a common area, and we had contact with a guy, Chuck, who lived in America, who designed 50 at least housing co-ops in America, and he sent a little sketch through with them in 2 rows, which we initially were like, what? And he said, no, you'll save money. And if you have cottages, the space in between is lost space. So if you put them all in rows, you'll save money on all the fittings and you'll save space. So eventually we were, oh, and now we couldn't think of it any other way. So it's good.
I think that common land in the middle really gives this feeling of spaciousness. They point outward into this open space. Some people might be deterred by the idea of a townhouse of living so close, but in your neighborhood, it's just this beautiful spaciousness. I didn't get a sense of feeling too close. But as a cooperative, that is the point as well, to be closer to your neighbors. You already know each other. The point is to be a cohesive neighborhood where you're sharing and doing activities. It's okay also to be physically closer. The name cooperative is quite rare in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We hear co-housing more, and that's starting to become a popular term, people wanting to have a common house and this neighborhood sharing. But you have the name cooperative. I'm wondering why you chose that name cooperative and how that might be the same or different than co-housing, and more about that structure.
The original people, so their kaupapa was creating an alternative to the landlord-tenant system. So under ours, because it's a trust, the residents are also the trustees, so we're our own landlords and manage it and run it ourselves. It's a cooperative. We have a sister organisation called Peko Whole Foods, and they're a workers' cooperative where the workers in the shop are also the managers.
So is that different than a unit title structure? Are you a cooperative company, for-profit or not-for-profit cooperative, or what's that tenure legal structure?
So I have a complicated legal structure, starting with the body corporate of 14 unit titles. The charitable trust owns 11 of the titles, rented out to residents who can become trustees if they want. And the 3 owners have bought in, all governed by the same set of rules, similar to a body corporate, but decided upon by the residents. And that's from an unincorporated society. So you have 3 levels.
And so when people buy in, is that something they can get a mortgage for, being a unit title?
We probably would have gone with the right to occupy if we could have chosen it, but the bank wanted unit titles, and that means we can sell on as owners. However, the kaupapa of the trust is to create a more equal society by stopping the private wealth of landlords versus tenants. So we have caveats on the property. When an owner sells their property, they have to offer it back to the trust. And when they sell it, they're selling it for the price they bought it for, plus the rate of inflation each year. So there's no capital gain, which matches the rents, which are about 75% of normal rent.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite a benefit. Capital gain has become quite the norm in New Zealand, that people gain their wealth through property. We've lost that definition of home being a place to live and belonging, and home being rather a house that is an investment. So it's really great to hear a waiting list of 70 people. That just goes to show that there are people who are perfectly happy to have a house there where it serves their purposes while they're living there, and when they move on to sell it at that rate, which is just above what they paid. I hear some people say, how is anybody going to move on from a community if they can't re-enter the market? And I think that's a whole nother conversation, which is, again, the mindset shift that we have to keep rising prices because that's the only way anybody's ever going to be able to move on. But that's not true. There's plenty of other ways for people to move to another place to live without them needing to always pay more somewhere else. So I'm really happy to hear that you've got such a wait list. How do you deal with that wait list? How do you say who gets to come in next? And do you have an idea to make a second cooperative housing because so many people want to live like that?
So we have just had a vacancy, which we've filled. It's quite a process to get in. We like to keep a balance of ages in the community. It doesn't mean if you're first on the waiting list that you're first to get in. It just means you're on the waiting list. We look through and see who is still wanting, because some people put their name on the waiting list and since then found someone else. So they're all contacted. I think this time we ended up with 12 people because it was just a 2-bedroom unit. We have a look as a whole community. We have a meeting and look at the different people and then try to get it down to 4 groups, and then community members meet with them, talk over what it's actually like. In the past, we have had people who've come along and realised that it's perhaps not what they want. Some people can't deal with being quite visual to other people a lot of the time. The people who've met up with the prospective people report back and give a bio about them, and then we get it down to, I think, 2, and then we have a discussion. This time it was actually a bit more difficult than usual because a few of them had contacts with other people in the community. It became quite tricky to choose because we could have had any of them in the community. We filled the vacancy with a lovely solo mother and her 4-year-old daughter. That went well.
Oh, I'm happy to hear it was a single mother because I was a single mother with my kids and found it really challenging to find a place that would accept me, I believe, because of my single mother status. And of course, I would have loved to have had a community for me and for my children. So I'm really happy to hear that, yeah, this is a perfect place for a single mother.
One of the things that she said was she was actually from the UK. She didn't have her family. Her family are in the UK. So she really wanted that physical contact with people and connection. So that's worked out really well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Was there any plans to seed another community there in Ōtautahi?
Well, yeah, we'll support any other group that wants to set something up. We'll draw them a free site plan based on the co-housing design principles, and free to use our common house as a meeting space. A lot of groups do, but it's extremely hard to set them up.
So, what would you say are, if you are offering a bit of mentorship, a bit of a roadmap, some templates, a space, then what would be the challenges that people run into that make it so hard?
The main ones are finance. You can have a group that meets for ages but never talks about money and then realises they can't really afford it. The other one's finding a suitable bit of land and getting that for a reasonable price over the developers. Then the building finance is quite a stumbling block as well.
And would that be something, when you say builder finance, that would be for a group that's not, they are cohesive, but they're still individuals, for the bank to agree that they're a safe group to lend to? Is that the financing part?
Yeah, financing the build.
Are there any groups that have gone by the way of a partnership with the developer, so that financial aspect is covered by the developer, but the developer takes the lead from the residents?
It's generally not, but I think it is a good idea. And I see that Tātika Co-housing has formed into a co-housing developer now. So they should be able to support new builds for that. We were lucky in the earthquake rebuild because our houses had fallen down. We had the land already, we had a big payout of insurance money, we had a good long-standing functioning group, but still very difficult, let alone a new group of people coming together who are not developers. They just want to build community.
It sounds like the best way to go, given that there's a lot of meetings involved and a lot of financial aspects and a lot of development that is out usually of the range skill set of most people who want to live in such a way, the ideal would be to find somebody with a developer background to become a partner, whether that be Circle Living, who've done it before for co-housing, or another developer. I know there's one called Nightingale. They do more community focused. But yeah, I think we have a bit of a lack of developers who are in that space of developing for residents rather than developing for as a business and turning over the profit. We don't have that sort of altruistic developer, or the developer who would like to live in the housing neighborhood they build. They would design it well to make the space great rather than trying to cut corners, which doesn't make a better place to live. So that's good that you're offering the mentorship in the space, though. So at least it's a starting point for groups that would like to perhaps even just get together and then approach a developer. So that might be the seed part that they need to get their ducks in a row to approach a developer and make a proposal, perhaps. And so if it was such a challenge, can you talk to some of the benefits? What are some of the wonderful things about living there, about this kind of way of living?
Okay. You've got a sort of ready-made family and the security and the contact, knowing that you've always got somebody around if you want to talk, or just that connection. You know that there's people around, and the intergenerational aspect. You've got the older couple that we've got here. There's been a few people that said, oh, I want them to be my grandparents. And then we've just had a new baby born last week. So we've got the span of newborns to over 80, and lots of people, just the children. It's so good for the children with all the play equipment and the connections. In the past, we had a group for about 10 years of quite static, and 4, 5 children that sort of grew up together. They grew up having lots of adults around at their places and growing up together. They've all grown up to be very socially aware, very good conversations. We think it's because they grew up in community. If you want a cup of sugar or anything, there's always people around to help out. And I think you feel like in our meetings that you got a voice in how the community is run, and sharing things like we don't have washing machines in our units. So we've got more space, your bump spaces where you're going to do your washing and hang your washing out. And there's only one lawnmower and one set of tools. Not everybody's got everything. We recycle and reduce set of bins. We don't have 36 bins sitting there. There's lots of sharing aspects.
The kids have grown up there, but they're smarter, more socially adept. They can do better in life because they've had lots of parents to talk to.
Well, that could actually transform our society, really. We've got young people going more and more into either the technological world or just isolating themselves within their peer groups. And we've lost that intergenerational interaction. So I'm really happy to hear that's what's happening at your community. There's this beautiful interaction of young and older, which is beneficial for them in the long run.
It's really good to see some of the smaller children playing the older children. At some of them, you actually see the real gentle side of some of them because they're taking care of the little ones and they feel like they've got that job to look after them. It's really good to see that aspect of them.
Nice. And for yourselves, anything, other benefits that you personally really enjoy?
I really enjoy just coming home, either waving or having a chat with someone as you're going there. It's a nice feeling of belonging. And I really enjoy when I sit on my patio and look out and can see the kids playing and neighbours who are completely different sort of culturally or from different classes or different ages sitting around having a chat. It is like a village.
And if there's even a couple of people sitting out on the picnic table having a coffee, that you can join them. We've got a couple of WhatsApp groups and someone will say, we're having a jam session over in the common house if anyone wants to join, or we're having tea in the common house. You're always welcome to join in things.
Yeah, lots of things to join if you want to. So I know some people are a little bit nervous about these kinds of more intentional communities because I guess they feel they'll be ushered all over the place and have to participate. But what I'm hearing is there's an ease of socializing or organizing. You've got the space there and people don't have to worry about traffic if you want to do it at 5 o'clock. And so there's that ease of invite and of arriving without necessarily having to go to all the things. But there's so many more options.
We've designed the houses so they go from the common space in the courtyard and having a porch and then the kitchen overlooking the courtyard, but having the lounge, it's more private, and the bedrooms upstairs or on the side, so you can be private when you want and choose to be social when you want. Otherwise, if you're all together all the time, drive you nuts.
Yes. So that leads me into my next question, which is, again, I think as humans, we've developed a way from being able to solve our conflicts in a peaceful way and being able to have a voice without being a dominant voice. And I think that's what a lot of people are also nervous about with living in community is what if I don't like my neighbor, but then I have to see them all the time. If I get approached by them, I'm going to feel awkward or I'm going to want to yell at them. So that, I guess, that conflict resolution or how do we get along, how is that people are prepared in your community with the skills to be able to do more cooperative living or conflict resolution? What structures in your community might aid an inter-neighbor conflict?
It was interesting going from after the rebuild going up to 14 houses, whereas before we were 6 or 8, and having a greater number takes away a lot of the individual personality because there's always going to be someone you don't like as much. And with the 14 units now, it doesn't matter the same. Compared to when it was only 6, that person is more there. I think that's a big thing. We have that sort of monthly residents meeting where we can bring up things. And we're quite a happy place. tricky between parents having different parenting styles, and the kids will be running in and out of each other's houses. So they have their own WhatsApp group for trying to sort out stuff for that. Yeah, we encourage people if they have an issue to go and talk to someone and bring it up in a meeting.
Do you have anyone there that's specifically skilled, or do you bring in anyone skilled in facilitating those very tricky dialogues, or if there's a real conflict in mediation?
Yeah, we've got some pretty skilled people that are good at talking through those situations in meetings. Over the time that we've been here, there's only been a couple of ones that were probably only one that was quite serious that needed a lot of mediation, and we got there in the end. I think generally the people living there are open to living with lots of other people and understanding that you're living quite close to other people. So you tend to get people that are better skilled at dealing with that. And our process of getting people in, we always ask that question. What would you do? The children have squabbles on the trampoline, but they always get solved.
Children are still learning, but adults sometimes can get a bit stuck. I've heard of some communities strongly recommending that in this onboarding time of 6 months to a year, they do some skill development, whether that be nonviolent communication, which is one form of being able to communicate, or there's another one called possibility management, or maybe it's just simple conflict resolution basics. So is that a requisite or something that is within your neighborhood?
We do have that basic conflict resolution process.
If it gets to be that way, you have something that you can go to and say, all right, let's use this process. It's been created for this purpose. I think that's a good safety net, because if everyone has to be left up to their own making up a process, that would be tricky.
Because we use consensus decision making in our residents' meetings, that sort of teaches how to listen and find the best decision for everyone rather than arguing the same over time.
A few people that have come in and not from a cooperative background, and then a year or so later have said they really now appreciate hearing everyone else's ideas and everyone listening. One person said at the start, it was quite upset that they'd have an idea and everyone would just talk around and weren't happy with that idea and just moved on to something else. They were used to living individually, and if they wanted to do something, they would just go ahead and do it. But you have to realise that you think you might have a great idea and you present it to the group, and the group are all just not really, and giving reasons. So you do get used to, over the time, realising that it's consensus. And that was, I think, the reason why sometimes meetings, some people do get frustrated that an issue might take quite a few meetings to resolve, because people have to go away and think about it, and then comes back to the next meeting, and then it's not resolved. It goes away and comes back. Some people are just like, no, let's just solve it right now. So yeah, those just little frustrations come through.
Yeah, because we're not used to having anywhere else in our lives, work or school, where we're given the opportunity to be fully heard and considered, and for it not to be just somebody over the top saying, in the end, I'm the one that makes the decision. I've heard what you have to say, but it'll be my way in the end. We're not used to that process of inclusionary consideration. So it's a muscle that's developed being in the community, and then it just becomes a norm, except when you then have to step out of your lovely neighborhood and deal with the rest of society. Is there anything that your neighborhood or community has in your future, like a big ambition, anything that you might be working towards besides just maintaining how things are? Any dreams or things you want to do?
Yeah, so we've got 2 projects underway at the moment, seeding new communities that's involving quite a few people in the community. There's a rural project and a city project, but it's very much in the starting process of it. So,
Is this for people on your wait list who are already interested?
no, it's trustees organising land that we own.
Ah, okay. So you own the land and you're thinking, let's turn it into housing, but you have to start that process in terms of what can the land accommodate
Yes.
in a rural area. You really need to consider, would that be looking quite different if it's a rural property? Would it have aspects of ecological or food production?
Definitely.
Wow, that's exciting. Where can we follow the progress of these ideas?
Well, we haven't put it out there yet. It will be out there in due time.
That will be on your website then,
Yes.
when we can launch it to the public.
Yes.
That's very exciting. I look forward to hearing more about that. Is there anything where the Christchurch City Council comes to you and says, wow, this is great, we can learn from you here? Or, yeah, anything that beyond just your residents that you can tell that you've made a difference in your community?
We do have connections with 2 other community groups, or actually 3, but 2 quite closely, the Moa group and the Avon Loop group. We have had meetings where they've come to us and some of the residents have gone to their community meetings. So the latest one was about civil defence. So in the event of another earthquake or some sort of natural disaster, and we had the civil defence give us what you need, which I think everyone in New Zealand knows that. As a group close by, they came and said, oh, you've got a firebox, helpful to know. And we said we could be because of our size of our community house, that we could be a meeting point for groups to come. So just seeding connections with wider community groups, and we're on their newsletter, and knowing that there's people around if there is another natural disaster, we're a wee bit more prepared than the previous one.
Oh, that's good to know that you're serving as that point for your community. In terms of what you would give advice to others who want to form a community or live this way, are there any resources that you have used that you have found helpful, inspirational to prepare you and keep you able to live this way?
Yeah, so the co-housing book by Chuck Durrett and McLaren. So they've got good stories of other communities and also how to do it, and including like go for 15 to 30 houses. 20 is a fantastic number. So we went from our sort of bungalows all in a row with joined backyard to a purpose design housing place around the courtyard. Made a huge difference in terms of interaction.
Yeah.
So yeah, good design.
And I think, and Robin Allison's from Earth Song in Auckland has got quite a lot of information about it too.
I guess there's the Earth Song website where they've made some public documents. Does your website also make any documents available?
Not yet, no.
Do you see that in the future, sort of being a resource library for others?
Yeah, we've got an advice link where they can contact us and we'll provide them.
Okay.
So we've got a reasonable stash.
That's great.
I would say what is different about Peterborough is that most of the houses you can rent, and the rents are low, and that means we're full of families. There's 21 adults and 9 children, and children make community come alive. If you're planning a new community, I wonder whether it's worth getting touristic landlords to buy several of the houses to rent them out so you can have low-income families and young families, and that makes this place a lot more special. Otherwise, if you're just buying in, it's mainly elderly or professionals.
That is a really good point.
The one in Dunedin and Birdsong, you have to buy. I'm not sure there's that many around that you can rent to be in it.
So you say altruistic investors. So in terms of the buying, that would also be at a set price. It's not an investor to earn a lot of money, but more an investor in the social good, would you say? That would be their main motivation.
Yeah, if you are buying into a co-housing as a investor, then it's a bit more safe as well because you've got other people around looking out for your house. It's not going to get trashed the same. It's a good stable bet, I think, for someone. It's hard to do this now because we got set up in 1982, got 5 properties at $92,000. We were able to buy them by bidding in auction and going around the members and friends and borrowing $5,000 each to pay for the property. You couldn't do that now because capital gain has just taken up the prices so much. And so we've gone from that value of 92,000 and now we're at least $6 million valued enterprise purely from capital gain because most of the time we've charged really low rents. So haven't actually made money as a landlord, but capital gain really ripping off the next generation of people to stop them being able to afford houses.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, isn't it? That without charging the capital gain, who's really losing out? And it is the next generation. Good to couch it that way. So, what other things might get people more into this frame of mind, cooperative living?
We do a lot of tours, the monthly tour, and there's always like the Kohohui. There's a lot of other groups, including the council, that come look through and get inspired by the place.
So, welcome people to come and visit, and you can book one of the tours free at Peterborough. Well, we say $2, but that's just to get people to turn up and don't actually take the money. I think it's good seeing the thing in person.
So you have had people from the council come?
Yes.
And what interest does the council as an entity show supported in any enabling way? Is there anything that you either encourage them to do or that they could do to enable more housing like this? What do you think the role is for council?
I've had quite a few meetings with them because their project to try and increase the density of central Christchurch. So they're always interested to hear, but I think, like Trystan said, it's land and finance that are the barriers. While they are very interested in the housing cooperatives, they don't have the ability to help in a lot of ways, but they're very willing to listen.
Okay. In many places, not as much here, but in the UK, there's the Community Land Trust Network where the land is owned by a trust. It could be the council for the purpose of providing affordable places to live for key workers, for the folks who really are the skeleton of the community to work to be able to not have to move away. Is that the council sees that its role is to provide affordable land and where they own land to be able to turn it over to a land trust for such a purpose. But I think we don't yet have councils understanding their role in that way yet. I'm on the Housing Innovation Society, and there's another committee member, and she and I are developing an educational presentation that we can take to all the councils where we're going to be making this link really clear for them. As you were saying, single mother who wouldn't necessarily be able to afford on a single income, or there's so many demographics that really need more affordable rent that would otherwise have to leave. And I think council just needs to have that link made where their return on investment of offering land means that they have a more vibrant, stable, secure population. And at least there is a community like yours that demonstrates it, that says, look, we've got a range of socioeconomic and we've been able to stabilize a bunch of people who wouldn't otherwise have it. So you're at least the living proof of that. Was there any fun fact that you have about yourself? I always like to have something fun to throw in there, a little playful.
Oh, my partner's Colombian, and I'll go from New Zealand and touring people around Peterborough Street and saying, "Oh, look at our community, and we're so connected and things." Get to Colombia, we know nothing. New Zealanders are so socially distant compared to most of the rest of the world. Got
Yeah,
up,
where you think we're on the scale of innovation, but you go to Colombia and it's,
we
this is just our standard way of living. That's neat that you get that cultural perspective as well. And you, Stephanie?
I always get asked when I say I live in a housing cooperative, is it a cult? Is it religious? I wouldn't like living with so many people coming in and out of my house all the time. I have to explain that it's not a cult. We don't have an almighty leader. Before the rebuild, we had somebody living there that was at ARA and had met the film study student who he talked about the community, and they immediately had the idea that it must be something really weird. She was invited to Sunday dinner, and we did talk before she came about whether we should do something really weird, like take off our clothes and do something. But in the end, we did it, and she came, and it was just like we eat dinner, talk, go home. So she decided not to
It was
do
too
that.
boring. Yeah.
But I do think that there is the thought out there that we're a bit weird. So that's something that I guess we have to get over or educate people about, because I think there's still people in New Zealand that want their own house, their white picket fence, and their dog, that don't understand living cooperatively.
Yeah, that's the point of this show as well, to bring not only the normality of it, but actually this is how we thrive as humans. We actually do so much better along the stages of our lives, and financially, economically, health-wise. There's all these different indicators which show that what you're doing is giving people a better quality of life in so many ways. And it's the way we're intended to be as humans, and we've lost that. So I want these stories to show that it is a more wonderful way of living, and there's stumbling blocks. There's certain things that our economy or our financial institutions have set up that are barriers to what is in the human best interest and even in the ecological best interest. And so it's hopefully getting these financial institutions to hear about that stability you were talking about, even that somebody comes into these housing communities, they are more stabilized. So it is a less risky venture than the conventional mortgage. So we just got to take the stigma out, take any misconceptions and any of the risk that's perceived to these kinds of developments, and not only normalize it, but uplift it as this is really the ideal that we should be working for as we do new housing developments. And fortunate for you, you're already living there. So you just get the work of mentoring while the rest of us have to figure it out. I'm in that stage myself of trying to figure out where in my area is there going to be a co-housing community that I can join and not have to be the person who's got to lead the charge, but I can add my skills. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about the Peterborough Housing Cooperative?
No, but just come and visit
Yeah.
and say hi, see how it works.
Yeah.
Be nice to see us.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Thanks, Zola.